All right, today we're diving into a book that basically argues most of us have been following the wrong script when it comes to sex. It's Ian Kerner's She Comes First. And this isn't just another how-to guide, It's a total rethinking of sexual philosophy. So we're going to break down its most essential, game-changing arguments.
So, here's how we're going to break it down. We'll start with the problem the book is trying to solve, this whole question of pleasure. Then we'll tackle the big myth it wants to bust. From there, we'll get into its main philosophy, look at the anatomy that backs it all up, and then finally, talk about the huge payoff for intimacy. The book really kicks things off with this pretty provocative quote. And it's not just for shock value, right? It's pointing out what Kerner sees as a huge knowledge gap and maybe the biggest obstacle to mutual satisfaction. Basically, this book wants to be the owner's manual that's been missing all this time.
And that knowledge gap, well, it leads us directly to our first topic, a question of pleasure. To really get the book's philosophy, you first have to understand the problem it's trying to solve. You might have heard it called the orgasm gap.
Now, this isn't just an opinion or a hunch. It's backed by some pretty stark research that the book points to. Get this, a University of Chicago study found that more than two-thirds of women, two-thirds, don't consistently have an orgasm during intercourse. And that single statistic? That's the core problem Kerner is setting out to solve.
So, what's the solution? The book's main idea is actually pretty simple, but it's also kind of radical. It's proposing a complete shift in focus with this one bold idea, that when it comes to female pleasure, the most reliable tool in the toolbox has been treated like an opening act when it really should be the headliner.
And to really understand why that shift is so crucial, we have to deconstruct what the book calls the myth of the main event. This part really dives into the cultural assumptions that, according to Kerner, have been holding back mutual pleasure for, well, generations.
You know the script, right? Foreplay leads to intercourse, which leads to a male orgasm, M scene. That formula is so deep in our culture, we rarely even question it. But Kerner argues this script isn't just old-fashioned, it's fundamentally broken if the goal is mutual satisfaction. And this is where the book forces you to stop and ask a really important question. Is this goal-oriented, penetration-focused model, is it actually designed for female pleasure, or is it based on something else entirely? The book really challenges us to look past the cultural script and get back to the biological blueprint.
So where did that broken script even come from? Well, the book traces a lot of our modern confusion way back to early psychoanalytic ideas, especially from Freud. He's the one who pushed this myth of a mature vaginal orgasm while calling clitoral stimulation infantile. And that idea created this confusing, unachievable goal for generations of women.
Okay, so after tearing down all the old myths, the book starts building a whole new framework. And this is its big idea, the core play philosophy. It's all about a massive shift from seeing an act as something you do beforehand to making it the primary focus. So what exactly is core play? Kerner actually coined this term to give a new name and way more importance to an act that's often just pushed to the sidelines. The idea is simple. It is not a warm-up. It's the central, most dependable path to a woman's entire cycle of arousal and orgasm. And the difference between the two is, well, it's everything. Think about it. Foreplay is treated like the appetizer. Core play is the main course. Foreplay is the opening act. Core play is the headliner. This isn't just playing with words. It's a complete paradigm shift in how we approach sex. But look, for a big philosophy like this to really stand up, it needs a biological foundation, right? It needs some science. And that's what we explore here in Anatomy of Arousal, the actual blueprint that explains why core play is so incredibly effective. Okay, so this is the view that most people are familiar with. The book calls this external anatomy, especially the part of the clitoris you can see just the tip of the iceberg. And that really hints that there is way more going on right under the surface. But this is the full picture. And honestly, this is where the book's whole argument just clicks into place. This is the entire clitoral network, this huge, complex structure that goes deep into the body. And understanding this hidden anatomy is the key to why direct, focused stimulation is so vital. And if you need one single number to seal the argument, here it is, 8,000. The book points out that the clitoris has over 8,000 nerve endings. To put that in perspective, that's more than double the number in the head of the penis. And its only known job? Pleasure. That one anatomical fact is pretty much the cornerstone of the book's entire philosophy. So understanding the anatomy is one thing, for sure. But the book argues that the real power of this philosophy isn't just physical. It's about the emotional connection, what Kerner calls the intimacy payoff.
And this shows that the mindset here matters just as much as the method. The book lays out these 3 assurances that need to be communicated, whether you say them out loud or not, to get rid of anxiety and build this atmosphere of enthusiasm and patience. It's all about making her pleasure a shared, celebrated goal.
And ultimately, this is the core takeaway. The book reframes the whole act, not as a chore or a step to get somewhere else, but as this profound expression of generosity and connection. It is, as Kerner puts it, one of the greatest gifts of love, because it's focused entirely on the act of giving pleasure.
And so, we're left with this final, really powerful question that basically wraps up the entire philosophy of the book. What if we just rewrote the script? What happens to intimacy, to connection, to satisfaction when mutual pleasure, not just one single act, becomes the true main event?